told the number one fear people have is speaking in public. It's the one fear I don't have. Join me for the Love Speaks series, where we leave fear behind and we speak love. Loving our story, loving speaking, doing what we love, loving each other, and loving ourselves. Our stories are what connect us and make us better humans. So join me and my Love Speaks friends for some stories, some laughs, some inspiration, some speaker tips, and some unexpected truth. It's the Love Speaks series, where a little bit of love goes a long way.
Welcome to the Love Speaks series. Here's your host, Sally Lou Loveman.
Oh my gosh, happy spring, everyone. Oh my goodness, it feels so good to have warmth on our bodies and on our hearts and spirits. I am not sure that we've ever welcomed spring the way we're welcoming this spring after the year we've had. Just being able to go outdoors, it's not just a lovely experience, it's an essential experience. And today, my guest makes outdoor exteriors feel like a lifeline, like literally just good for the spirit and the soul and the family and all of it, because his exteriors feel like home. It's an extension of your home. And as we are in the height of the spring season, I am so grateful for his time. He also happens to be the sponsor of this podcast. So I'm extra excited today. We were supposed to be in person, but we're playing it safe by doing this recording by phone. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Hey, Sally Lou, how are you today?
I'm very well. I'm almost a little nervous. I've never been nervous for a podcast, but I'm a little nervous because you're my sponsor. It's so exciting. So exciting. So before we chat, let me tell the listeners about the brand, yours, that I have admired for years. It's Red Spade Environments. Red Spade is the premier residential landscape architecture and design build firm based in Winnetka and Chicago. And Scott Freres is its principal. Large or small, hardscaped, softscape, pools, patios, pergolas, fireplaces, outdoor kitchens, and sustainable gardens. The Red Spade team has done it all. They are seasoned professionals who bring 30 plus years of landscape architectural design and construction experience to make your vision a reality. It is their true hands-on approach, and we're going to talk about that, and local presence that differentiates them. Red Spade, landscape design, consultation, installation, management. What is on your 2021 wish list? Let Red Spade bring your environment to life. Oh my gosh, Scott, I have many wishes, which we will also talk about. As president and co-founder of the Lakota Group and principal at Red Spade Environments, you have been designing and shaping communities and open spaces around the country for over 30 years, and many of your designs start with what you call napkin thoughts. So today, for those of you listening, whatever your passion is, whatever your dream is, whatever it is that wakes you up in the morning and you want to do it, this conversation with Scott Freres is going to remind you that your napkin is waiting. So please welcome Scott Freres to the Love Speaks series podcast. How are you, Scott?
I am great. Thank you for asking, and particularly happy to see the warm weather back in town, at least for the time being.
Right. I mean, we're in Chicago, and spring is happening, and it is your time. It is your season. What is the first sign of spring? Like, what is the first flower to bloom when spring arises?
It's not a flower, it's a phone call. And it's like, when are you going to be over here to work in my yard?
Oh, that's a great soundbite. It's not a flower, it's a phone call. I mean, I just came back from Florida, and, we live in a small townhouse, and so we don't have much exterior space, but my front pot had the old greens from Christmas, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to call someone. So you're right. It is a first call. I might call you after this.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's an exciting feeling. It's like, let's get ready. Let's bring in this beautiful explosion of color and warmth and it feels good. So thank you for taking time out of your busy season right now, which is called spring. But I want to ask you, I have so many questions, but the first question I love asking people and on this podcast, and you have such a powerful story of following your passion, which is really what this is all about. This podcast is all about. But how is love speaking to you today in this moment?
I think, love has lots of different meanings, and it applies to lots of different things. In the moment, love for me is the ability to do, the ability and blessing I have to be able to do what I want every day. Wake up, do it, feel good about it, feel like I made a dent in the world somewhere, or somebody's yard, or some community's public space, or what have you. It just makes me happy to be able to do it, to be able to wake up to do it. I'm lucky. In today's world, there's just so many obstacles to being able to achieve that. I feel like I've just been blessed, and the love I feel is just the ability to be able to do what I do and do it. I'm doing it for a living, but I don't think of it as a living. I think of it almost as a passion that I have.
It's truly that when you are able to do what you love and get paid for it, that is the definition of love speaking, something. But take us to young Scott, early Scott, growing up. And when did that first brick hit your head? Oh, I love this. Were you gardening? Were your hands in the dirt? Were you making a mud castle? When did that feeling of passion start for you?
Yeah, I think it was a collision of a lot of different things more than anything. As a young kid, I would call myself more of an introvert, and I was an artist. Mm-hmm. And my parents used to send me to private art lessons. So I had a passion to draw and design and paint and do all kinds of things. And then I would marry that. Where the collision occurred was I would spend all my summers as a kid in northern Wisconsin at my grandparents' house. So my parents, after school was over, send my brother and I up to the North Woods, and I mean way up at the very end of Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And we would spend our summers really on a lake in nature, just kind of hanging out and building forts and exploring and doing all kinds of things that kids do in nature, not around TV, social media. So that was another opportunity that hit me, and I was lucky for that. So take art, take introvert, take nature, apply it to maybe my high school years. I had a job working in a construction crew for one of the villages here in the Chicago suburbs. I had my own landscaping business, cutting neighbors' lawns.
Did you have a name for that?
Tar their driveways,
Yeah. Did you have a name? Did you have a brand at your early age?
No. It's just, hey, Scott, get over here and do it. I mean, there was nothing, but what it was I was able to find out that I loved being outside. I loved being able to work in the outdoors, and I learned an appreciation of nature that you really can't see unless you spend time in it.
Right.
And then what you can do in your later years, you're able to emulate those things that you see into your practice some way, some shape.
Right. Okay. So what is your favorite season? Because this is a loaded question because for someone in your business, every season matters, but do you have what's your young Scott favorite season? Not
I'd say my young would have been summer.
Yes.
My older now years, it's fall.
Fall. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I love fall. I love the change, and I love how the world seems to slow down and the days get shorter. Lighting looks different.
Yes.
Plants take on a whole different meaning. And I know that things are slowing down a little bit, so I'm not going full bore. Right,
exactly. So you can take a little tiny rest.
Yeah, it's selfish.
I get that, though. But what? So obviously, so many businesses, small businesses, have been affected by this pandemic. And how has your business? How has it been? I'm assuming it's booming because everyone has realize that their home doesn't end at the four walls, that, you know, being outside is not just a luxury, like, oh, it's beautiful. It's really a lifeline, and it keeps us safe. So have you seen a spike in your business?
Out of control.
Oh, that's
to the
awesome.
Point where it's out of control, which is great. The bad part of it, the really bad part of it is I'm so happy that people have discovered their outdoor world, and for them, not necessarily for me, but from the other standpoint of it, it's made my job very difficult because you are managing expectations, and expectations are that everything can just happen instantaneously, and that's just not how it really works.
Right.
It's not go to the store and buy a landscape and put it in your backyard. There's a process to get to, and it really requires a little bit of effort, educating folks, spending a little time with them, making them understand it's coming, it's going to get there, but be patient.
Well, patience is not anything. Oh, I don't have it. So we're about to do a bathroom, and I'm like, can it just happen? Can I just like go away for a couple weeks and it just be done? Yeah. You know, it's just the whole construction, and then of course I'm sure you make the design, and you know, people are like, okay, I want it now. And talk to us through that process, because it's not just about an exterior beautiful design that you're providing someone. It is really the process that you take that begins with conversation and listening. And the thing that I just love the most that you talk about is napkin thoughts. So tell us about napkin thoughts and the process that gets to the napkin. Sure.
So the napkin, first I'll give you a little bit of the genesis of the napkin thoughts.
Yeah.
I am a landscape architect and urban designer, and I've worked in I have two companies. So I have one company that does big scale work around the country, public parks and plazas and streetscapes and zoning codes and all kinds of stuff.
Lakota.
And then Red Spade is the little sister company that works at a different scale. And Napkin Thoughts came about years ago when my business partner and I initially started our first company just about 30 years ago. I used to sit at a coffee shop every day, and before I'd go into work, and collect my thoughts, collect my ideas, and sketch on napkins.
So cool.
And I would bring these napkins into the office all the time. The office was down in the city. We worked for a big international architecture firm. And when we transitioned to our firm, I'd always sit in a coffee shop before I came into work, where I kind of get myself together. And no matter where the place came from, I would take their napkins, whether it was Pete's Coffee or Starbucks or some other place that would have a logo or whatever. And I had thousands and thousands of napkins in my office from sketches. And my former business partner used to walk around and call me a Picasso on a napkin. And that I would, because he would take them and he would pin up these ideas, and we'd go to meetings and we'd stick them up on the wall. And I thought, it became what I realized when we transitioned it to Red Spade and the napkin talk at residential level, was it became a way of a very informal conversation for people to begin to see your thought patterns and how you thought and how their ideas could come to life very quickly while you were talking to them.
Right.
Instead of me going back into my cave and drawing plans, what it was sketching something right in front of them over a cup of coffee. They're like, wow, that's exactly what I want. And I realized it was a great way for people to kind of get engaged and to see that what a napkin is, that a plan isn't, is it's fluid. It's meant to be disposable. You could throw it out and start again. And that's part of the design process. It's not really ever done. And it's an evolution. So it starts with a napkin. It moves to paper. It takes in the voice of a client or a community. And it starts to fashion ideas, not a final plan, but ideas. And then from those ideas, you hone in on a plan direction.
Well, you're speaking to me, like your story has landed on my heart, and it landed on my heart before this conversation, because I did my research, and I love, every time I see your signs, Red Spade Environment signs in yards in our neighborhood where we live on the North Shore of Chicago, I just get I feel like this visceral home feeling. First of all, I would love to see the napkins that were drawn when you did the logo, because I love the logo and the red and all of that. I would also very much like to see a photograph of all your napkins, and I would like to post that on my next post for Red Spade. So I'm going to make you get to work on that for me because I
will pull them all. All of them are shredded, but they're good.
Oh my gosh. I don't care what form they're in. And I will say that, that I'm a visual learner. I have a feeling you may be too. And I remember when I launched my business, I was sitting at a coffee shop, which was at the time, I can't remember the name. It is now Hometown in Glencoe. But I'm not sure what the name was before, with a friend who is a marketing whiz and genius, Nancy Shaw. And she basically pulled out the napkin from under my coffee cup and wrote out like a whole thing for my business plan and for my brand, She did not actually do my branding, but she was just a friend who, and when I saw it, I still have the napkin, I hold on to it. And it was really a launch pad for me to say, you know, if this can happen on this little, tiny piece of paper or cloth, it can happen in reality. And so 7 years later, I'm doing exactly what she had set out. And of course, a little differently. It is far from finished and it's still evolving and it's fluid. And so what you just said can apply to anything anyone is working on. So if you have a dream, pull out a napkin and write down. It is also interesting that the napkin is what's the word? It is confining to a certain space. So you really have to put the most important things down, and that doesn't just happen by accident, right?
Yes. That's exactly right. The other thing a napkin speaks to that was a big philosophy of both of our companies was the idea that the best designs and the best conversation always happen around food or beverage.
True.
And one knows that you can change the makeup composition or the air in the room of a conversation by bringing food or drink into that.
So true.
And when we find that collegial conversation with clients or leadership in communities, it's always over food or drink. It always changes it. And so that napkin was kind of a byproduct of the space that we chose to have collaboration in. The other byproduct were all the stains in the back of my jeans or pants from pens that I would have that I never put the cap back on after all those napkins.
Right. And I guarantee you, and I may have read this, but tell us, is there only one pen you use? Do you have a favorite tool of your trade, of your napkin design?
There's two pens that I always use, and one is a Pentel rolling writer, and the other is a Papermate Flare.
Okay.
And I don't know what it is. I don't know if my hand-eye coordination won't respond to other things, but those two pens allow me to speak better than anything else. And it's a big part of my communication is more the written or visual than it is the verbal in many respects. Because
you are an artist. You said that from the beginning. So you need, an artist needs their tools, and an artist always has their favorite tools. And I love that. I'm a pen snob. I don't know. I guess snob is the word. For me, I'm a pen snob. I'm like, won't use that, but I would I'm holding my, is this Papermate? I'm looking, I can't even read it, but I get them. Okay, first of all, do you like Paper Source? It's my favorite store for pens.
I love Paper. I buy all my little gadgets there whenever I go buy $1 card.
Exactly. So I don't even have a brand on this pen that I'm holding, but it's fabulous. And also, I just love the idea of, you just, like, my tagline on my book is your audience is waiting, meaning like if you think your story isn't going to land on someone's heart, you are so wrong, as we just noted here today. And so I think everyone has an audience, but really today I want to say that your napkin is waiting, so that anyone that has an idea, I mean, like, you know, you think of Sarah Blakely, who just had this idea for Spanx, and she was like, yeah, I think I'll do that. And now, you know, what that has exploded. And there, so many stories that way. I think about a friend of mine who I grew up with, who used to, who went to college in the South, and he used to make barbecue sauce for all of their fraternity house parties. And he now is, you know, has a huge business in Washington, D.C., Rockland's Barbecue. And that's what he's doing. You know, it's just like, what do you do well that makes you feel like you don't even have to really work at it because it comes so naturally to you? That's that's where all of this Love Speaks comes, because it's just like, you can't stop it. And you went to college knowing really what your passion was already, correct?
Yeah, I knew it was. I was, you know, I still to this day explain to my kids, who I have twin boys that graduated college 3 years ago and went to the same alma mater that my wife and I went to,
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Which I hear you bleed red.
We have one more in high school that we need to get through, and so I think she feels a lot of pressure to go there. But
what's her name? What is her name? I need to know. Can you tell me?
Her name is Natalie, and she's a junior at career. And so we got one more.
Natalie, tell Natalie to call me, because you're describing my family. We all went. My dad went to Lafayette College. My mom did not, in Easton, Pennsylvania. My two sisters went. My brother-in-law went. And I said, no way, I'm not going. Guess who went to Lafayette College? Me.
I was going to say, I thought you were else.
I feel you, Natalie. Okay. Wow. What happened for me was super rare, and that's not normal to go to college and know what you want to do. Not at all.
And I tell my kids, I go, college is where you learn to experience world and people and different backgrounds, and it'll shape you, and it'll shape what your opinions are. So I went because I knew I wanted to be an architect or a designer, something in design. And when I was in high school, we had an architecture class, and a really great architecture program. I went to Glenbrook North High School, and they had a reciprocal program. The reason I'm telling you this is because it's relevant. Yeah. A reciprocal program with Glenbrook South. And the two high schools would have a competition to whose house was the best design. And then the school's building trade program would build that house and sell it in the marketplace. So my house year won, and it was built. And the architecture teacher, who was also the wrestling coach, and I wasn't a wrestler, he said to me, I said, hey, I want to go be an architect in college. He goes, no, you don't. Oh. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, you don't want to be an architect. And I'm like, why? He's like, because... And this is what he said. Now, this was, mind you, this was back in 1982. He goes, architecture is not growing. It's a dying industry. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He goes, but what is growing is landscape architecture. Wow. Nobody knows about it. It's a small little subset. The world is going to move outside. This is what the guy was telling me, 40 years ago. And I said, wow, that's unbelievable.
Powerful words.
He said, you want to be a landscape architect? There are 8 programs in the country that have accredited programs. Only 8 at the time that were accredited. Now there's significantly more. And one was Wisconsin. Why did I pick Wisconsin? Because I had spent all my years as a kid in that state.
Exactly.
And so that was how I found my path, went right into the program.
Have you ever gone back to thank your teacher?
Yeah, you know what? He passed away about 15 years ago. I did thank him when I was in college. I don't think I ever had the chance to really thank him after that. Yeah. But I don't think his point was that he gave me advice that was forward thinking, which was amazing. Yeah. It wasn't that he was dissuading me, don't be an architect. He was saying there's another area of growth that you would. Yeah.
And maybe he saw something in you that was going to like take that niche and run with it. And I think years ago, like you said, there were only 8 programs. Landscape architects was like an afterthought. But I feel obviously that has changed. But how have you changed that? How have you, Scott Freres and Red Spade and Lakota, changed landscape architecture design as to be like part of the very beginning phase of whatever development program you're doing. Project, I should say,
well,
not program.
That was always the biggest hurdle, to get beyond the guys who just what I call shrubbed it up after the building was done.
Yeah.
And what I did wasn't so much what I did, was what my business partner and I did when we formed Lakota almost 30 years ago. My business partner had gone to Wisconsin for his master's degree in urban planning. And we realized that the bigger sell to this bigger world was providing services in urban design, urban planning, landscape architecture, historic preservation, everything on the outside world, not just the building. Mm-hmm. And so when we left this big international architecture firm where we were the planning department, we started Lakota with the goal of being the first guys into the project, not the last guys in. Yeah. And the way you do that is you're the planner. Somebody has to come in when a developer or a client has an idea, they plan it, they entitle it, they get the zoning, they figure out the budgets, and then they are the ones who hire the architect and the engineer and the landscape architect. So we realized very early on that you want to be the front end of the game and then work your way back. And all the while, the world was changing. The word sustainability popped up.
Right.
The greening up. And so we in many ways, rode a wave early on that allowed us to be at the forefront as opposed to the tail end of it.
Again, forward thinking. Wow. That's very interesting.
And I would say luck too. Everything in life, there's an element of luck to it.
Yeah. What made you, I have two questions about your two companies, the word Lakota and why you chose that. And did you choose the color red for your Red Spade logo and company because of Wisconsin?
Good question. I get asked Lakota question all the time. There's two answers to the Lakota. The most obvious answer was my former business partner who retired about 10 years ago. He and I were writing our business plan back in 1993 for Lakota. And while we were writing it and trying to write our story and blah, 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 we were trying to think of a name. One thing we knew for certain was that our name was not going to be John and Scott and Company.
Right.
The idea that it we wanted it to carry on into the future without us if we weren't part of it. So we were watching TV at the same time that we were we were putting this business program together, and the movie Dances with Wolves was on.
Oh.
And Dances with Wolves, as you might know, was about the Lakota Indian tribe, Sioux Indian tribe, and their plight when the expansion of the country was moving west.
Yes.
And we did a little research. We loved the name Lakota. And as we dove into the name, we found out that it meant allies of the land. Mm-hmm. And it was just it was unbelievable that it connected with us. It had a meaning that was important to us, that it spoke to the land and the real tribal connection to the earth. And so that has been our connection. And I'll tell you, to this day, I'm actually speaking to Lakota Sioux tribe on Thursday.
That was going to be my next question. That's so cool. Okay.
We've in light of all of the world issues that are going on, we made what I would call a forward effort to reach out to the Lakota nations and try to make a connection and provide a level of commitment and support to their communities. And
that's beautiful.
So we are doing to the Lakota Sioux YMCA in South Dakota, and we're hopefully going to be meeting with the 7 tribal leaders of the Lakota Nation this summer, which will be phenomenal from my perspective.
I mean, that is where you realize that your work is not just about your own passion, but it is, I always like to say when you do what you love, others benefit. And this is you didn't choose this name just because it sounded good and it worked for your brand of your business, because those two things, it definitely checks the box there. But the fact that you are, giving back and sharing your wealth of experience and knowledge with the Lakota Nation just goes to show that you're not in this just to make a plan. You're in this for the long haul.
Right, and I also want to show the staff that there's a bigger purpose to what we do.
Exactly.
If you want it to be, you have to work to get to this connection. It doesn't just fall in your lap. You have to spend a considerable amount of time, energy, and even dollars to support this directive. And so we're working on that. Now, back on Red Spade.
Yes.
Your thought about the red and the badger blood, it really had nothing to do with it at all.
That's so funny.
When I sat down and I evaluated the marketplace of landscape architecture and landscape construction firms, I just saw a lot of green.
Yes.
And I wanted to be a color that stood out in the landscape. And so when you think about what is the complement to green, it's red.
Yeah.
And red stands out in yards and in spaces. And the next thing I wanted a logo and a sign that it was just different, that spoke to people. And
right.
so we painted red shovels and built a sign with a logo and an emblem and a design. I had a great graphic designer, Elizabeth Dursk.
I know Elizabeth Dursk. I know her.
Super lady.
So talented.
Super lady. So she helped me, make that a reality. We put it to work, and it had great brand recognition. And that was part of it, was the whole brand recognition. It's about the brand. Again, my name is nowhere in any of it.
Right.
And I don't want it to be. I want to be part of a really special brand, and not Scott and Company and Scott this. Because I can't, and it also doesn't speak to, the staff and the people that work with you are so important to the operations. It's about them too. And when you start making it all about you, it just changes the dynamic, I think.
It's so us. I love that. And I will say that my family and I, we rented a home in Winnetka on Elm Street. And between selling our home in Glencoe and buying a townhouse in Northfield, and I would walk down Elm, and one day I saw, maybe it was you, I don't know, and a client in the yard, the person from Red Spade, it had a Red Spade, sign, and you or someone, I'm pretty sure it was you, doing a consultation. Someone had called you and said, Scott, I need you in my yard. And I never hold back on compliments for strangers or people I love or know. And I stopped and I just said, and it drives my kids crazy, and I said, I love everything you do. I love your brand. I love your signs. I love your work. And one day I hope that I can have a yard again and put that sign in it, because I just love it so much. And so I guess we have met, but we didn't meet formally. And so now here we are today. I think nothing happens by accident. I think that the red in your logo happened maybe not because you went to Wisconsin, but there's no question that it just kind of works, right? Yeah. And you said you had a moment, I should say, that you were looking at the view down, and I don't know if I have never actually been to the campus of the University of Wisconsin, which is a huge problem because I hear it's absolutely beautiful, and I live an hour away, so I should do that. I'll put that on my 2022 bucket list. But you were looking down Bascom Hill to State Street, and you said you had a moment when you saw that view. How does that view influence the work you do today?
Well, that I would say that view to me speaks to our Lakota world. Many of our projects we work for cities and municipalities all over the country. And a lot of our work is focused on recreating cities and downtowns and bringing life back to them, and understanding how people are part of the environment, how you program public space, how you activate storefronts and businesses, and bring in, mixed use, multifamily housing, all those different types of things. And standing on top of the campus, which in itself, at the highest point, looking back at the state capitol, it was just, to me, it was the antithesis of, education, government, and community all blended into one place that worked. It's where state and education and real life all meet, and in the grounds of a beautiful lake behind you and everything else. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create those great spaces. That was what I wanted to be a part of.
like a perfect puzzle, like really, truly everything coming together, like the perfect team. That's so interesting. I love that, because when we look and see things, we have to think of things more deeply. Like you are forward thinking and thinking about how everything works in symphony with each other. What client, and you've worked, like you said, all over the country, what client provided you with the biggest challenge that excited the hell out of you, that you couldn't wait to solve? Because I know you're always looking for that inclusive, simple approach. Yeah. And sometimes things can feel like a complicated problem that you resolve simply.
Yeah, I would. So from a Lakota standpoint, or
anything, doesn't matter.
Either, okay.
It could be recent.
So I would say the most challenging experience, and yet the most rewarding experience by a long shot, was we were or have been a planning consultant to the University of Notre Dame in South Bend. Mm-hmm. And about 10 years ago, the university, in their master planning thinking, said it's time to make a major change for the university. We need to cross what I would call the DMZ line. It's a street that runs on the south end of the university called Angela Boulevard. We need to cross that street. We told everybody in the city of South Bend and everywhere that we would never cross that street, but we need to cross that street because our campus needs to grow. Mm-hmm. We need to grow from a lot of perspectives, but the most important thing we need to do is we need to have a campus town. We need to have what Madison has, and what East Lansing has, and what Michigan, University of Michigan has in Ann Arbor. We need to have a campus life. We don't have that. And so we have to cross the street. Well, on the other side of the street was a very poor and disenfranchised part of South Bend. Mm-hmm. And it was always said that the university will stay there and you'll stay over here, and never the two shall meet. Mm-hmm. And our job as the planning consultant was to come in and build a relationship, a bond, and a partnership to make that happen. Right. And so we spent about 3 or 4 years helping a neighborhood transition, helping folks relocate to different components of South Bend, helping businesses relocate, and then being able to provide the greater South Bend with the why and the benefit to the greater community of why we're going to build this new campus town called Eddy Street Commons. And Eddy Street Commons was going to have a mix of retail, residential, student housing, regular market rate, local housing, but most importantly, we were building a 80-unit affordable single-family neighborhood for the people who were being bought out, so they could stay at a neighborhood. That all happened within a 3, 5, 7 year. The completion of it should be this year, but they have built a whole new town south of their campus. And it really was challenging because you had to, you're working for the big monster, but you have to walk in the moccasins of the people who live in that neighborhood.
And what if the client, I won't say Notre Dame, but what if a client said, no, just come on in and don't worry about the people that we're displacing? Would you say no?
No, then we're not going to. Yeah. No, then we're not going to do that. I mean, we got to align with general philosophies. Yeah. There's a right and a wrong way to everything, but we find ourselves never really being on that side.
I can't imagine.
or trying not to be on that side. It's really tempting because there's a lot of developers who will pay you to do this plan and blow out that neighborhood.
But you attract the kind of client that speaks to your mission. So I think that makes sense that you don't run into those kinds of things. But that's beautiful. And I wonder, I don't even wonder, I imagine that when you were going through this process, the amount of listening you did to the community, where did you, who taught you that listening is the way for the best laid plans?
Well, our firm, the hallmark of our firm is community engagement. Everything we do has a level of community engagement. In today's world, that level goes to the social media world. It goes to virtual reality. It goes to a whole host of things. But still, the best solution is face-to-face conversation with the communities and folks that you serve at a local one-on-one, at a focus group, at a community open house, workshops, whatever it is. I really learned it. From my business partner, John Lamott, who I started the company with, Lakota, back in 1993. Not only was he an urban planner, he was a trained mediator. He worked for the court system on a volunteer basis for mediation cases. His father was one of the head social workers over at Mirabel Academy. He was just a hands-on, everybody loved him kind of guy. And he told me, you gotta listen to people. You have to talk to people, listen to them. And not only do you have to talk and listen to them, that's great, but you have to show them that you heard them by your actions.
Exactly.
And your actions, your plans, your ideas, they want it. Even if they're goofy, you have to listen to them and you have to show them they heard. You have to give them that level of respect. And if you do, they'll come over to your side. Or they just won't be as big of a pain in your dupa.
You can say
so. The reality of it is that I learned from somebody who was very good at it, who knew how to work with people, talk to people, and I emulated his actions. And as we developed as a company, we would just automatically say community engagement is part of our process. This was 30 years ago.
Right.
People weren't talking about it. Now it's automatic.
Right.
It's commonplace. You have to do that.
That to me is the complete, I mean, yes, you are skilled at what you do in your design and all of that and your plans and your forward thinking. But I think that at the root of it, at the base, is your ability to listen and incorporate the community, whether it's just your family of 5 or your family of, the Lakota world of a huge nation of family members. So, and I also believe that anyone who has the art of knowing how to mediate can literally change any business that they're in. It doesn't have to just be, it could be anything.
Yes.
But
yes.
Being a mediator, well, John has clearly left his mark on you. That is a wonderful, wonderful tool to have. I want to know, I am a big thing on, when an environment sucks you in and pleases all 5 of your senses to make a career out of it. That's what happened for me when I was 14 and I visited a television show, the Mike Douglas Show. And, so, you remember a long time ago, I was 14 and my mom invited me and I was like, this is what I want to do. And I just loved the smells, the taste, all of it. And people are like, how did you taste a TV studio? I'm like, the taste of the excitement. But anyway, what smell in your world reminds you of your purpose?
Oh my gosh. That's, well, here, let me start with something that you probably wouldn't have guessed in this conversation is I have lost my sense of smell and taste for the last 10 years and just got it back.
Wow. So, wait, you just got it back when everybody else lost it from COVID. That's
everybody
crazy.
Else is losing it. I had sinus problems, sinus polyps that I'd had surgery on for years. I'm on all kinds of medication, blah, 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 blah. Lost my olfactory senses from all these medications and from these polyps. Well, gosh. I went on to a different medicine this year during this whole COVID thing. I'm not going to give a pitch for any drug manufacturer, but I will tell you that I got my sense of smell back. And here's what I will tell you is that your sense of smell, your sense of taste, your touch, everything is all stored in a giant hard drive in your head.
Yes.
And you never, ever lose any of those things, even though you may have lost that sense.
Right.
Meaning, my wife would ask me, well, why are you eating hamburgers and hot dogs and fried chicken and ice cream when you can't taste it? And you won't gain weight or whatever. And I'm like, because my brain tells me that I want those things.
Right.
And so when I think of the sense of smell, the one sense of smell that I like that came back last year is that first smell of like spring, when you can wake up in the morning, you go outside, and there's a sense of, it's just that kind of like musty kind of springy odor that's out there.
Yes.
That to me is like the one thing that kind of like it's life. Everything's coming back to life.
Yes, and I will say I'll add one more smell to that spring.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with the smell of mulch, and most people are like, "That's disgusting." No.
Yeah.
It is like this. Like spring has sprung. Like all is going to grow now, and I love the smell of mulch. You too?
Now, regular wood mulch or mushroom compost mulch?
I'll take any mulch. I don't care. I just want to manure mulch. I don't care. Like I love the look of it. I love the spread of it. I've mulched myself. I mean, my yard, and to me, it's like the potential of growth is stored in mulch to me. So that's why. Yeah. And for me, my smell, besides television studios, is when I would walk up the marble staircase at Harpo Studios every morning at 6:30, and I would smell Oprah's hairspray and flat iron. It meant she was in this, makeup chair and the hair chair, which meant we were having a show, which meant we were going to transform lives, which meant people are going to grow and be better. And to me, that was like the smell of my purpose. And even still, when I smell, it's never quite the same. It has to be Oprah's hair, and it has to be her hair spray and her hair flat iron. But even with the hint of it at a hair salon, I'm like, oh, yes. But it's just that feeling of like growth, I think. I think that's what and purpose.
Are you one of those mulch people who likes to have it all fluffed up because it looks better than when it's all compacted down?
I like mulch flat or pumped. I don't care. I just love mulch, and my grandfather. I youngest of three, like Natalie, and I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house growing up. And my grandfather was early retired, and I thought he was a landscaper. I literally thought he was a landscape architect because all he did on the weekends was tend to his magnificent yard. And in my book, I tell a whole story about one of his terracotta pots that I now have in my garage. We need to resolve that, so I need to talk to you about that. But anyway, all I can say is I watched him and helped him my whole childhood. And it just felt, I guess that's where my feeling of mulch comes back, because it felt like home to me and my grandfather. So, smell is so attached to memory. So,
that's exactly right.
So another thing I'm obsessed with, which I want your help on, I love weeding. I love to weed. How do you know when it's a weed and when it's not a weed? How do you know when to pull and not to pull?
That's hard to describe on a
podcast. I know.
It's a look and a touch thing. So, it's a light pull, and if it comes out, more than likely a weed. If it resists, then maybe leave it and let's check first.
I think that's a very, very, very astute way to say, and clearly you have experience. And that light pull and it comes right out. I'm like, oh my God, it's like stain removal to me. I love weeding. Do you garden at home?
Oh yes, all the time. In fact, much to the chagrin of my family, they'd be like, "We're going on a bike ride. Yeah, I'll be there in 2 minutes because I'm weeding, or I'm turning over the dirt, or." I do it because it's therapeutic for me, and it's a palette, right? So I go out there and I'm creating something, even if it's one tiny little area and I'm moving or transplanting 3 things. I'm creating something that I can watch it change and transform. It's more of like it's a studio for me. That's really all it is.
It's your studio. It's your art studio. Yeah. That is such a great way to say it. Do you garden with gloves?
No, you don't wear gloves.
Okay.
It's illegal.
Illegal. Interesting. How does working with your hands speak to you?
Well, because you can feel the earth. You can feel things. When you're pulling that weed out, you can feel the resistance of the weed. You can feel if it's got spiny little hairs on it. It might tell you that it's a weed. You can, when you're in the dirt, it just feels so good to be in that dirt. I don't know what it is. People are like, that's gross, but I just love it. And I'll go a whole day like that and then come in one time to wash my hands because it's just part of the thing. Now it's a major hassle to clean under your nails and all that. I get it.
Yes.
But you can feel what you're doing. It's like telling a ceramicist or a potter, why don't you use gloves while you're working on that pot on the wheel?
Yeah, no, it's a barrier. It's a barrier.
It's a barrier, right?
Totally. So anyone listening who might not have the budget to hire a landscape architect or your team or something, what is the one thing we can all do to make our exterior life, even if we just have a little tiny patio like I have, or a balcony or a window, even a windowsill? Like what is something that we can all sort of take away and make our exterior world, as we are now experiencing the most important spring of our lives, speak to us?
Yeah, I think, and it's not necessarily money driven. I think it's better understanding your outside space and what moves you when you're in it. And so to me, what people should be doing is navigating their yard, spending time in the yard. Where do I like to sit?
Yeah.
Where could I put 2 chairs? It's not about all the decorations that I'm going to put in. It's about the experience of when you're sitting there, what you're looking at. You're looking at the house, you're looking at a fence, you're looking at your neighbors, your car in the driveway. Are you looking at a beautiful plant? Maybe it's just putting light on one tree at night so that when you're in the house or out,
true.
That's something. Maybe it's color in the form of some annuals in a pot. Maybe it's just buying 2 new chairs that you just love to sit in and you put them in the grass and that's all it is. It's really understanding what your expectation of that experience is. And then you can plan around it. Now, I tell people, put your chairs and table out on the lawn or wherever you think you're going to have a patio. We'll draw around it.
Right.
And lots of times I tell people, I don't need to draw a plan for you. What I need to do is I just need to spend an hour with you and bring my spray paint can, and we're going to draw the whole thing in your grass or your yard of where all this is going.
I love that.
And then you're going to pick furniture. And it's great. And people are like, that's great. I go, and then I'm going to tell you what I need to do because you can't do it. And I'm going to tell you what you need to do because you can do it. And then they're like, well, I don't like to get my hands dirty. I'm like, well, then I'm going to charge you to do it.
Now, how do you like your dirty hands?
Now you like dirty hands. I don't like, Sally Lou, the thing for me is it's not about, there should not be a fear factor in hiring a designer or architect. You need to find the personality that you can work with. And I've just realized over the years that people get afraid because they automatically think of dollar signs.
Right.
I don't really care if spends $5 or $500,000.
Right.
As long as they're getting the experience they want out of this. And in today's world, what's really important is at the same time people are decorating their yards, there's a lot of our demographic that's changing their housing needs in terms of what they need or don't need. And so at the same time, they're thinking about downsizing or moving or, the kids are gone. And that's when you should be thinking about what does the outside mean to you and how should we be planning for that?
Right. Well, listen, I think that we can all agree that we have great respect for the outside world. We've given Mother Nature a much deserved break that she needed for the last year, and we can see that she has loved it. And I had COVID very bad in March of 2020. Yeah, and I happened to be in New Jersey at my sister's home, where she has this beautiful, beautiful home in Princeton with lots of land. We went to get our girls out of New York City. We thought we were going for 2 weeks and we were there for 7, but I got very, very sick and I isolated in what she calls her yoga room, which is just off of, it's a different building on her property, but attached to the garage. But what was so incredible for me is as sick as I was, I had a door I could open and walk out and it was spring. It was just, the cherry blossoms were blooming. And between that, having that sunlight and ability to go outside and have my bare feet on the grass, in the grass, knowing that I'm going to get better, hopefully, because I didn't know. And then my son in the garage, there was a piano. So he would play the piano for me in the other side. So those two things, the music and nature, was so incredible. And I think that anyone who just puts a little music outside, however, it's just the two things just can heal a soul and heal a body because it did for me.
It's the best medicine.
Yes.
And outdoors, nature, and your garden is truly the best medicine. It can cost you nothing, but it can just do wonders to your health.
It really is a mental health boost that we all need, and we can all have it in a small way, a big, medium way, or a big way. And how I definitely don't want to forget to ask you this, and you mentioned it earlier, but sustainability, that's such an important piece of your work. How can we as homeowners be more helpful in living a more sustainable life?
Sustainability is one of those words in business that it's thrown out around very loosely in terms of what it means to any specific person. And from a sustainable, there's different aspects of it: sustainable lifestyle, sustainable landscaping, sustainable, businesses. There's all kinds of different things that people look at it from a lifestyle standpoint. I think sustainability really focuses on just using the environment to an advantage that provides you with some sort of personal benefit, but then taking care of it. Like the idea of recycling. Okay, I can tell you, recycling, water recapture, all those things. Those are all the buzzwords and all the gimmicks and all of the components of what I would call green lifestyle. But sustainability is really a philosophy that you need to live by, meaning that it's a respect for the environment, first and foremost, understanding that we're sharing the same space, the same world. When you go to think about doing a patio, maybe not all of your yard needs to be paved. Maybe half of it needs to be paved. You really need all of that. Is there something else we could do when I'm working for a community that would add value to the community? It's not necessarily about green. Sometimes it's about helping other groups in the community that would provide sustainability in terms of social equity in that community. There's so many different venues. I don't like to pinpoint one and say I'm on that bandwagon.
Right.
Certainly from a green world, I'm about using smart principles for planning, for design, for recapture of our resources, for smart use of dollars and cents when it comes to managing our outdoor spaces.
Right.
One of the biggest areas of waste is all these great parks and everything we have that we are applying sustainable principles. Well, it costs something to take care of and manage and maintain them that aren't necessarily aligned with sustainability. So people have to understand it's not just the practice, it's also the policy that has to go with it.
Got it. Wow. That is something that no one would think of. So that makes a lot of sense, even in your own home. Okay. So I knew that this would go too quickly, and I have way more questions, which is good, which we always want to end with wanting to know more. But I want to know, your story sounds like it just happened so easy and perfectly. And, you had the teacher, which not everybody gets somebody to take interest in you. And you had this feeling of going up to the North Woods in Wisconsin and knowing that nature was really important to you. And you had the skills of this, and you go to college and you study it, you have a program there, and it all goes so swimmingly well. What is there ever a no that you feel really kind of launched you or made a difference or made an impact?
A no?
Yeah, like someone told you no to something, or you didn't get something that you really wanted, that really just turned it around for you, that you instead of it being a no, it was like a door that allowed you to look somewhere else and be successful.
I would say, I don't know that I can specifically say there's been lots of no's and related to projects and things, but for me as a person moving forward, the most difficult challenge is balancing, frankly, is I've been married 31 years to the same gal I met at university. It's managing my family and managing it and balancing all these great things I do for everybody else with my family. Right. And that's the biggest challenge for all these years. And I've been lucky enough to be able to balance it. I've got a spectacular partner in life for that. And I'm lucky. I'm lucky, but I've had a lot of no's from those people on, we don't want you to do that. We need you to do this and blah, 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 blah.
We want to go on our bike ride, Dad. We don't need another little vignette in the yard. Listen, I have seen your home. I know your home. And you are not a cobbler without shoes. Like, your home rises up to meet you, as Oprah Winfrey would say. And it is a perfect poster for your brand. And it is, I mean, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. So, I think, as a woman, I would love if my husband could blow dry my hair. But at the same time, I really wish he was a landscape architect.
Ask my wife that question.
I will one day. Well, I can't thank you enough, Scott, for this hour. It went by way too fast. We need to make a date when I'm vaccinated and you're vaccinated, and I would love to walk a property with you. I would love to see you in action, and I would just like to meet you in person. I can't thank you enough for investing in me and my message of passion and love, because your story is exactly the kind of story that I tell here on the podcast with every single one of my guests. And our story really is our superpower. Your story has landed on my heart. I hope it has landed on many listening, because whatever the passion that you have, whatever it is, that talent that you have been blessed with, is where we should all be focused so that we can benefit others. And that is exactly what you do with both of your companies. And I can't imagine that that our partnership here has happened by by coincidence. It was purpose. So I'm really grateful to you and the Red Spade team. In fact, I noticed on the gram that you're hiring, and I think that that's really cool. So anyone with landscape architecture design talents, the Red Spade team, at least a week ago, was hiring. They may have already secured people.
Yeah, we can always use some good help, and we appreciate that. And I thank you for the time today. It was great chatting with you. I'd love to catch up with you in person and have a cup of coffee.
We will. I want a napkin. I'm going to ask you a question, then I'm going to make you my small space. I think it's like 400 square feet, and you're going to make it so pretty on the napkin.
Those are the best.
I know. I love small spaces. Where can we find you on social? I'll post all of it in the notes, but
you can find it. You can always find us at www.redspadeenvironments.com, and you can find me on my LinkedIn page, Scott Freres, or at the Lakota group.
Perfect. Well, I will make sure that all of that is posted, and I just can't wait to meet you in the field. Please make sure that you have a bag of mulch for me.
Yeah, I'll drop a thank you bag of mulch.
I don't want to plant. I just want mulch. All right, Scott, go out there. I know that all your clients are ringing in the last hour. It's spring. We need you in our yards. Go and have fun and enjoy being so incredibly talented at what you do. And we're so lucky for that. So thank you, Scott Freres.
I appreciate it.
All right. See you in the yard. Bye. I have loved speaking with you today, and I want to speak with you more. So follow me on all of my social platforms at Live Love Speaks on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you want more stories like the stories we speak here on the Love Speaks series podcast, go to lovespeaks.com and pick up a copy of my new book, Speak. Love your story, your audience is waiting. To step up your speaking game and your human game, check out my blog while you're there.
Sally Lou Loveman is a mom, speaker, author, former audience producer for The Oprah Winfrey Show, and founder of Love Speaks. Each week, Sally Lou and her crew have a conversation about how love speaks in their lives and how it can speak in yours. From kindness to composting, no topic is off limits. If you need a community to kickstart your heart, you need the Love Speaks series.
Thanks for listening. Your Love Speaks.